Owner of the unique vocals behind one of music's most timeless tunes, Mark the Mack Morrison had the year 1997 on lock, and every year after that when his hit song, Return of the Mack, crept its way into our ear canals, refusing to leave, and has been living the lavish life rent-free ever since. Unfortunately, an attempt to follow up on the mass success of the breakout hit would lead Mark down a semi-disastrous road, not solely due to his lack of successors, but more so due to the amount of court visitations and jail stints he'd served throughout his 20-something plus years in the business. Literal tussles with the law, assault allegations, and murder would haunt Mark's career to the point of no return. But perhaps we all might have read this Mack crime drama all wrong? The appointed Infinite Summer Jam and annual cookout anthem Return of the Mack has served as an immediate quicker picker-upper no matter the time or place. But before his huge breakout hit, Mack Morrison was an aspiring musician with an overwhelming drive to break into the British music scene. Before his songs were sitting at the top of the charts, Mark found himself standing on top of a stage, dressed in a Beatle costume at a children's Winnie the Pooh production located at the Phoenix Theatre in Leicester, England. Auditioning for the role of Pooh Bear's handler and lonesome human caretaker Christopher Robin, the casting crew clearly thought Mark was no actor by any means and had given him the non-speaking role as a Beatle. Satisfied by the decision, Mark himself was highly aware that acting wasn't his strong suit and was just thrilled to be there with his father cheering him on. His shot at acting, even if it were a small part in a children's play, would play an even bigger part in the grand scheme of his career. If he wasn't going to be the best actor, then he was determined to be one of the best musical acts of his time, even if the acts were just for one moment in time. A&Rs, producers, and labels slithered their way into Mark's life while out and about on his music endeavors, and in the early 90s served as a transitioning milestone. The vinyl release of Where Is Our Love had been released, and within a short few years, his debut single Crazy followed. The reggae hip-swaying melody was a top 20 hit over in his home base of London and a certified club favorite. His second single, Let's Get Down, also found itself in the top 40, but its cousin country, America, wasn't too fond of either tracks. But Mark said that ain't no problem, since in the following year, Mark's career as well as his bank account would forever change. Releasing Return of the Mack in '96, the song did massive numbers on the UK charts, reaching number 1 on the UK single chart and sat at number 2 on Billboard's Hot 100 in the US, right behind the Blonde Bob trio of Hanson's Bop during the summer of '97. Surpassing the top 10 in neighboring countries like Ireland, Germany, and Switzerland, and outside of the European corridors in countries such as Zimbabwe and Australia, the club-pumping, everlasting Return of the Mack seems to be laced with crack, figuratively speaking that is, because almost 30 years later, the song has withstood the test of times, and a new high is summoned with each listen. Something only a rare select breed of songs have been able to do throughout history. Remixing and sampling Chucky Booker's 80s hit Games, the Mack's gangster-like image inspired by the prevalent gangster rap scene over in the States, combined with his London aesthetic, made up Return of the Mack's accompanying dim-lit music video. And similar to its Mack Daddy suaveness, with a pint of bad boy combativeness, the video wasn't too far off from Mark's rebellious nature in real life. An actual jail stay by Mark himself during the song's creative process seeped through the pen he used to write it with, ultimately becoming the huge hit we recognize today. His debut album of the same name, Return of the Mack, went on to become a multi-platinum success, selling over 3 million copies worldwide, spitting out more hits like Trippin' and Moan and Groan that didn't quite live up to his Mack Daddy anthem. But by this point, UK's top 10 was a quarter filled with Mack Morrison's music, resulting in him becoming the first artist in British pop history to obtain 5 top 10 hits from a debut album. Now seated at the top of the charts and his career, the album brought Mark to a whole new high. but during its peak, he'd find himself routinely handcuffed and placed in the back of squad cars. Although we aren't so sure of what the exact circumstances were that had Mark singing, "You lied to me," in his cell, a cell quickly became his third home, courthouses being his second. Run-ins with the law often found its way to Mark no matter how hard he ducked and dodged his way around them. This law edition of Hide and Go Seek chose Mark as its playmate, and unfortunately for him, he'd lose every single time. He'd written his biggest hit to date while in jail, and in the exact same year found himself right back behind those cold parallel bars when he threatened a police officer with a stun gun, further resisting arrest. Serving conjunction sentences for attacking a man in the streets of London and another for smashing a photographer's camera. He was sentenced to 3 months in prison, but only served 6 weeks. The following year, he'd go from carrying a stun gun to a real one. Attempting to board an aircraft, Mark was caught like a deer in headlights with his weapon of choice and later convicted and sentenced to a similar 3 months jail stint. While Mark was in the slammer, probably entertaining the prisoners and jail guards with karaoke performances of his own songs, his music was steadily climbing and gaining popularity. When he was able to once again kiss the outside skies, he decided to do damage control by releasing Only God Can Judge Me, a nod at the naysayers and media who had something to say about his many jail stints in such a short period of time during his musical prime. A true testament indeed, and perhaps a statement Mark desperately clung to, because just a year after the drop, he'd find himself in those metal shackles once more, after failing to appear in court for his offensive weapon charges. Opting to tour and live his best life somewhere, probably canoodling with Rihanna's distant relatives in the island of Barbados. While out and about getting his groove on and off stage, everything was smooth sailing until he landed back in his primal base of the UK, where authorities awaited his return, but was later cleared on the weapon charge. His next jail visit wouldn't be due to similar circumstances as the last few. In fact, this incident had not only gotten physical, but deadly. A student was stabbed and killed during a nightclub brawl involving Mark, and although he may not have been the one to inflict the damage, he was on the scene and had broken a glass bottle in an odd attempt at taking control of the situation. This time around, the judge was more lenient and sentenced Mark to community service instead of the usual jail he'd gotten so used to. But the leniency wasn't lenient enough for the CeeLo Green-sounding OG Mac man. Convincing a friend and supposed bodyguard, Gabriel Mafurka, to take on the community service for him while he went away on tour. Gabriel's hair was longer, yet hidden under a cap, and he looked similar in appearance to Mark, allowing for Mark's master plan to run its course for a short while. Consisting of cleaning toilets and taking care of the elderly, Mark made sure to send a Mercedes to pick Gabriel up at the end of each communal shift, and his Scooby-Doo scheme was almost a success. Almost. The mask was soon lifted, unveiling Gabriel for who he truly was, which obviously wasn't Mack Morrison. The entire ordeal hit Mark with a 1-year prison stint, his longest stay yet, as far as we know, that is. Dipping on his legal duties, he thought he cheated the system by hiring a look-alike to do his dirty work for him, but had only cheated himself. Sad part about it, Return of the Mack was still sizzling, and he couldn't even enjoy its growing notoriety like how he'd wanted. Now, the walking definition of Akon's locked up, he seeked out Islam to aid in a lengthy sentence and changed his name to Abdul Rahman for a short while. 2 years into the 21st century, he was locked up yet again, this time in correlations to kidnapping, car theft, and rape. The first accuser accused Mark of taking her against her will and even stealing her Mercedes whip. Set for a bail hearing, Mark claimed that the woman stole a bracelet from him worth $8,000 and was later released only after he bribed a policeman. The officer was later arrested. Another incident included a woman who'd accused him of sexual assault after a fuss about taxi fares. A mutual friend had dropped the woman off at Mark's hotel room to perhaps play a game of leapfrog, if you know what I mean. Tired, Mark insisted on taking a nap and the lady became hysterical, refusing to leave. The same police from the stun gun incident were summoned, and the woman accused him of having relations with her against her will. He was then placed in those cold metal cuffs that he'd also gotten used to and escorted to the police station, but was later released after tests determined no signs of penetration or DNA evidence. In the chaotic year of '04, a diamond platinum medallion was snatched like an unsecured wig from around his neck at a nightclub, resulting in Mark putting the paws on somebody's son. He was arrested in 2009 for assault and has chosen to lay low ever since. Throughout the years, we weren't hearing much of Mack Morrison, and when we did, we couldn't help but wonder what altercation he had gotten into this time. Nevertheless, for the most part, he's been on his best behavior, re-entering the spotlight in recent years to lend his #1 hit to Burger King, as well as chip commercials and politicians. He recorded a charity single in 2020 and pondered on competing to become the next mayor of Leicester the same year, introducing himself to the younger gen by featuring on G-Eazy's collaborated track Provide, a sample of his song Return of the Mack with Chris Brown. Mack Morrison's musical road to success might have taken a hit due to his countless run-ins with the law, but the one song he's still eating off of till this day has been able to avoid all dead ends. He placed the British R&B scene on the map, and with over 250 million Spotify streams and counting, needless to say, we'll all be getting our lives at the annual kickbacks for years to come. Are you surprised by Mark's laundry list of arrests? Let us know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments, and stay tuned for more true celebrity stories.